You know what's starting to feel like an addiction in modern sci-fi? Gods, cosmic entities, divine metaphors. Every other week now there's some celestial jackass waving their fingers about, claiming to be the architect of time, space, or your feelings. The problem isn't the concept, it's that none of it means anything anymore. These so-called gods show up with all the grace of a Reddit thread titled "Am I the Villain?" and they leave just as quickly with the moral subtlety of a hammer to the head. Doctor Who has always flirted with godhood, from Omega to the Black Guardian, from Fenric to the Beast. But now it's just kitchen sink pantheon cosplay with zero follow-through. We get told someone's a god and that's supposed to be threatening. You know, back in the day, gods were terrifying. They didn't monologue about feelings. They devoured entire worlds while you were still asking what planet you were on. And that brings me to today's subject, not the new gods, the forgotten ones. The ones who didn't just demand your attention, but fed on it. The ones that marked the end of classic Who with a kind of apocalyptic theatre flair that no amount of Marvel mimicry could ever replicate. Welcome to the Snake Pit, where we're full of bile and venom. I'm your host, Snake Daemon, and today we're going back to the Dark Tent, the haunted circus, the realm of thunder and ash. Because before Doctor Who was eaten alive by DEI avatars and TikTok filters, there were the gods of Ragnarok, literal gods, actual cosmic nightmares, and of course they've been memory holed by the very show that could have used them to fix its broken universe. Let's rewind. The gods of Ragnarok, named by Rassilon himself as Raag, Na and Rok, weren't just cosmic freeloaders, they were destroyers of universes. They didn't manipulate timelines or whisper existential riddles. They consumed creativity. They fed on imagination, on performance, on spectacle. Think Eldritch Simon Cowell with the power to erase reality. They first appeared in The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, arguably one of the last true mythology-heavy classic story. And honestly, they left the stage far too early. These weren't gods with lessons, they weren't metaphors, they were hunger wrapped in pageantry, masquerading as an audience, and unlike the clumsy attempts at divinity we've seen in New Who, Looking at You, Timeless Child retcons and Lux misfires, these gods had teeth. They judged you with cards, zapped you with thunder, and turned your corpse into their next puppet show. And yet, they've been cast aside. The finale we should have got. The dust had barely settled from the chaos of the Interstellar Song Contest. Cora's haunting melody still echoed in the Doctor's ears, a lament for a world ravaged, sung over a grave no one knew was already dug. The Doctor stood at the console, solemn, almost subdued, with Belinda by his side. The TARDIS was battered, the Vindicator sparking. The doors still hung half-blown from the explosion that shattered their way into 24 May 2025. The one point in time the TARDIS had refused to breach until now. The Earth awaited outside, but it wasn't their Earth. They stepped out into a version of modern-day London that felt off from the start. There were cars, buildings, trees, but everything was wrong. Colours were muted as though desaturated, no sound carried. People moved in mechanical repetition. Faces devoid of expression, as if trapped in a silent film. Even Belinda, usually the first to crack wise, was unnerved. The world wasn't dying, it was paused. The Doctor looked to the skyline. The clouds were fixed in place like painted backdrops. The Thames was still. There were no birds. This wasn't Earth, it was a set. Back inside the wrecked remains of the Interstellar Broadcast Station deep beneath the ruins, Mrs. Flood was revived. Alone in the darkness, her silhouette formed in the glow of sparking consoles, her body cracked with light, not regeneration, something older, ancient. She rose, walked to camera, and for the first time addressed the audience directly. Her gaze pierced through the illusion. Now it begins. The frame held, her smile frozen, not sinister but knowing. The fourth wall didn't just break, it was obliterated. So, back in the Silent Earth, the Doctor received this flickering message, a distortion in the time stream, you know, and, well, it had Unit's signature all over it. He followed the trail right to this hollowed-out black site beneath the Tower of London. Kate Stewart was there, older, a bit haggard but still stable. Then Ruby appeared, and Mel too, both pulled in from fragmented timelines by Unit's leftover tech. Even Rose Noble was recovered from a pocket timeline Unit had locked down after the Toymaker vanished. Funny thing is, they didn't ask any questions. None of them remembered how they'd got there. They just were actors summoned to the stage. The group started exploring this silent city together, but honestly, every corner brought this weird sense of déjà vu. There were posters advertising films that never actually released, people reading newspapers with no headlines at all, shops filled with items that just looped in design. Like a shirt duplicated hundreds of times, it was a world cobbled together, piece by piece, from fiction, from memory, from stories. And then, well, the sky began to fold. They reached the Eye. A stage had been constructed at its base. Empty audience chairs stretched endlessly around it, waiting. And then, without fanfare, the gods arrived. Not with explosions or invasions, but with a curtain rising across the skyline, black and endless. The sun dipped into shadow. The people of the silent city turned as one and stared at the Doctor. The chairs were now filled, but not with people, with voids, absences shaped like viewers. And in a ripple of presence, the gods of Ragnarok stepped forward from the wings of reality, draped in theatrical shadows, their forms shifting between ancient masks and starlight husks. They spoke, not aloud, but into the fabric of the world itself. You, our star, our fool, our firebrand, you have danced through eons, and still we hunger. We built the fiction from broken time. You acted the lines. The applause kept the universe from fading. But now the Toymaker is gone and our theatre wilts. Your curtain call nears, Doctor, and we demand a final act. And as they spoke, Rose Noble collapsed. Her body flickered, her form unraveled like film fed too fast through a projector, burning at the edges, collapsing into static. The rest of them screamed, or would have, had the world not still been trapped in silence. The curtain had fallen and the act had begun. The Doctor found himself alone, standing at the heart of the London stage. The chairs were still filled with nothingness, the city now pulsed with colour, sickly technicolor, and with that came sound, but not the sound of life. Theatre noise, applause loops, laugh tracks, canned gasps. Ruby and Belinda reappeared, glitching. Their bodies stuttered between versions, different hairstyles, outfits from past stories, altered personalities. Ruby became a version of herself from Dot and Bubble. Belinda began quoting her own dialogue back at herself, each time slightly off. Kate and Mel tried to anchor them, but they too were slipping. The world was rewriting its players. Every person they encountered was a character from somewhere, a satire, a parody, a cliché. The world was fiction, and honestly, fiction was collapsing under the weight of its own lie. This was the multiverse post-Flux, not healed but hollowed out, and maintained only by perpetual performance. The Toymaker had created the scaffolding. The gods of Ragnarok ran the stage, and now that their toy was gone, only the Doctor remained as a viable protagonist. The Doctor came to understand this world, every adventure since the Flux had been written, not lived. Constructed stories feeding the gods who required drama, emotion, escalation, like sustenance, like wine, really. Without real worlds to harvest, they fed on fiction, they fed on him. The companions were constructs rebuilt in each scene. Rose had been real. Her death was the final sign. She was the one true anomaly, the one unreplicable person in a cast of illusions. Now the Doctor stood at the edge of the city, which faded into pure stage lighting. No horizon, just rigging. He was given one choice: continue the lie and let the play run on indefinitely, or end the fiction and doom everything within it to oblivion. A shimmer in the light revealed her again, a Mrs. Flood, no longer playing coy. She was the final aspect of entropy. The biblical flood meant not to punish but to cleanse, to reset the theatre. No demand, no villainous monologue, just presence, and inevitability. The Doctor turned to his companions, now barely holding shape. Their voices overlapped with lines from older episodes, their eyes reflecting TV test patterns. Even the TARDIS had become a painted backdrop. The gods of Ragnarok hovered above, enormous and mask-like. You, our star, our fool, our firebrand, you have danced through eons and still we hunger. We built the fiction from broken time. You acted the lines, the applause kept the universe from fading, but now the Toymaker is gone and our theatre wilts. Your curtain call nears, Doctor, and we demand a final act. The Doctor walks to center stage. He takes a bow. The flood begins. The light washes over everything, a burst of white, then silence. The Doctor awakes by a quiet, real river. There are no credits, no companions, no TARDIS, just the notebook, one line inside. The Doctor once walked into a story and walked back out. He smiles, tired, free, and walks into a new dawn. This is the finale we deserved. A metatextual reckoning that ties together the Toymaker, the Forgotten Gods, the Flux, and the collapse of Doctor Who's own identity. Because what better way to close a story about gods, stories and lies than to reveal it was all a show? Instead, what did we get? Sutekh on a floating dog bed monologuing while no one asked why the universe was still here after being shredded into cosmic spaghetti years ago. The gods of Ragnarok weren't just cosmic bullies. They were narrative inevitabilities. And if you're going to dabble with gods, just maybe, use the ones who fit the story you're actually telling. But that would require paying attention to your own lore. And we all know modern Who doesn't do that. Thanks for dropping by the Snake Pit, where we thrive on untapped potential and lost opportunities. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, like the video, and leave your opinions in the comments, where, naturally, I won't read them. Until next time, stay venomous.